All right, let's talk about one of the most fundamental rules of the entire universe. This thing governs everything, from a star exploding to you just getting out of bed in the morning. And yet, most of us, we barely give it a second thought. So what is this all-powerful law?
Have you ever really thought about this? Why does a roller coaster never ever quite make it back up to its original height? Or, a simpler one, why does a bouncing ball eventually just stop bouncing? It kind of feels like energy just vanishes into thin air, right? Well, that simple question actually has a really profound answer.
And the solution to this puzzle, it's not some super complex, mind-bending theory. Nope, it's actually a single, really elegant, and totally unbreakable rule that underpins, well, all of reality.
It's called the law of conservation of energy. And the statement is pretty simple but incredibly powerful. The total amount of energy in a closed system is always constant. You can't make it from nothing, and you can't just get rid of it. All you can do is change its clothes.
Yeah, here's a great way to picture it. Think of energy as this ghost in the machine. It never really dies, it just changes form. It's always there, working behind the scenes, even when it looks completely different.
Okay, so if energy doesn't just disappear, then where the heck does it go? Well, the secret is to understand that energy is a master of disguise. Seriously, it's constantly transforming from one form into another.
And believe me, it has a huge wardrobe. Energy can show up as kinetic energy. That's the energy of pure motion. Or it can be potential energy. That's energy that's all stored up, ready to go. It can be thermal energy, which, we feel as heat. It can even be electrical or chemical energy. And these are just a few of its favorite costumes.
So for right now, let's just focus on two of the big players, potential and kinetic energy. Just think of them as being in a constant trade-off. Potential energy is like the promise of motion, and kinetic energy, that's the promise being kept. It's energy in action.
Okay, let's imagine for a second a totally perfect world, an idealized system where there's no friction, no air resistance, nothing like that. In a world like that, energy would just flawlessly swap costumes back and forth forever. Take a classic pendulum, for example. At the very, very top of its swing, it pauses for just a split second, right? At that moment, all its energy is potential, stored up because of its height. Then, as it swings down, that potential energy transforms into kinetic energy, the energy of motion. At the very bottom, when it's moving its fastest, that's pure kinetic. And as it swings back up the other side, that kinetic energy turns right back into potential. The whole time, the total amount of energy, it never ever changes.
Right, but we don't live in that perfect world, do we? Our bouncing ball does stop. Our roller coaster doesn't make it all the way back up. So that brings us to the culprit, the real reason energy seems to vanish. There's an unseen thief at work here.
See, it turns out that not all forces are created equal. You've got what you could call energy savers, like gravity. With gravity, the energy you put in, you can pretty much get back out. But then you have the energy spenders, and the big one is friction. Friction loves to take that useful, organized energy and just dissipate it, usually as heat.
And bam! That solves our mystery. The energy that seemed to be lost on our roller coaster, it wasn't destroyed at all. It was just taxed by friction. Think about it. The wheels grinding on the track, the cart pushing through the air. All of that generates a little bit of heat and a little bit of sound. That's the transformation.
So this really shows us the real-world energy budget. In any real system, a slice of that energy pie is always going to be lost. And I'm putting lost in air quotes here, because it's converted by friction into these less useful forms, like heat and sound. The energy isn't gone, not at all. It's just not making the ride go anymore.
Okay, so this isn't just some neat little trick for solving physics homework problems. The law of conservation of energy is, well, it's the very reason our universe is predictable, the reason it's functional at all. And I know that's a bold statement, but it's absolutely true. This law is the ultimate rule setter for reality. It draws a very hard line in the sand between what can happen and what's just pure fantasy.
You want the most famous example of what this law forbids? Perpetual motion machines. No way you can never, ever get more energy out of a machine than you put into it. Why? Because you can't create energy from nothing. This one simple law just completely debunks centuries of wishful thinking.
And the implications of this are just huge. Think about it. Without this law, the universe would be total chaos. Energy could just pop in and out of existence whenever it felt like it. No predictions would be possible. This one principle is what makes science work. It lets us calculate everything from a planet's orbit to the efficiency of a car engine.
But what's truly amazing, what's really mind-blowing, is just how universal this law is. It's like a golden thread that connects almost every single field of physics. We're talking simple mechanics, thermodynamics, even all the way up to Einstein's theory of relativity. It is that fundamental.
All right, let's bring this all back down to Earth. How does this huge master principle actually apply to the world right around us, and how should it make us think about the energy we use every single day?
Okay, check this out. Here's a brilliant, large-scale example of how we harness these transformations: a hydroelectric dam. So first, you've got this immense potential energy stored in all that water held back by the dam. Then, when it's released, that potential energy converts to kinetic energy, which spins these massive turbines. And finally, those turbines drive generators, which transform the kinetic energy into the electrical energy that powers our homes. It's just a perfect, beautiful chain of transformation.
And once you start looking, you see these transformations literally everywhere. A light bulb doesn't just make light, right? It also gets hot. That's electrical energy turning into both light and thermal energy. Or when you slam on the brakes in your car, you're taking all that kinetic energy, all that forward motion, and converting it into a ton of heat through friction.
And honestly, this is probably the most important takeaway of all. When we talk about wasting energy, we're not actually talking about destroying it. That's impossible. What we really mean is that it's transforming into a form we can't use, like all that waste heat pouring out of an engine. The energy is still there, for sure. It's just not doing the job we want it to do anymore.
So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If energy is never truly lost, if it's only ever transformed, what does that mean for the energy we use every day? It kind of puts the focus squarely on us, doesn't it? It forces us to think about how we manage these transformations, how we can minimize waste, and maybe build a more efficient, more sustainable world. It's not just a law of physics, it's a guide for how we live.